All right, let's uncover the essentials of protein intake, its daily needs based on age, activity and gender, as well as optimal sources of and the potential risks associated with it as well. Joining me now is Kate Save from Be Fit Food. It's wonderful to have you in the studio. What is protein? For those who don't know, are we talking about the powder or meat? Take us through what it is exactly.
Okay, let's simplify it. So when we're looking at food, it can either be broken down to being carbohydrate, protein or fat, and they provide calories. So we call them macronutrients. Alcohol also gives us calories, so technically it's a macronutrient.
I much enjoy those. Yes.
When it comes to protein though, protein is actually made up of chains of amino acids. So when we consume protein from a food, whether that be meat, eggs, dairy, fish, we're actually breaking down that protein into its amino acids. Now, out of the 20 to 22 amino acids, 9 of them are essential, which means our body can't make them and we need to consume them every single day.
Okay, so how much protein do we need each and every day, and does it vary with activity levels, age, gender? The advice out there is sort of varied.
It is varied, and it depends on the science that you're looking at. If you look at our Australian dietary guidelines, the recommendations are actually very low. It's around 0.75 of a gram for women and around 0.84 of a gram for men per kilo of body weight. So if we call that roughly 1 gram per kilo, if you're a 70 kilo person, you need 70 grams. However, there's more research coming out to show that that may be not enough. That is just a very baseline level, and it certainly varies by age, gender and activity levels. And as we get older, our requirements actually go up, not down. So we used to think that as we aged and we ate less, maybe we needed less, but we're finding out that the bioavailability, how well you absorb it, and the quality of protein is so critical as we age because our body doesn't process it as well. Hence, we lose muscle mass, we fall and break a hip, and our risk of death is so high. So protein is critical for all age groups, but particularly as we age.
Okay, so let's talk about the best sources. I have a lot of friends who go to the gym, they drink those powders, they do all that sort of stuff. What sort of supplementation, I guess, in addition to whole food sources of protein we can look at? My fiance who's vegan tells me lentils are the place to be. Tell us more.
Okay, so when I talk about quality of protein and bioavailability, it really means, does it have all the essential amino acids? Now, all animal foods do have all essential amino acids, so those 9 the body can't make. And we actually turn over around 300 grams of protein per day, but we only really replace around 70 grams of that. So we need to make sure we're getting these essential amino acids that the body can't actually make. When it comes to plant-based sources of protein, they don't have all of the amino acids necessarily, so you need to combine your foods, and that's why something like lentils that is lacking in a particular amino acid needs to be consumed with a whole grain that is lacking in another amino acid to actually create a protein that is complete, that the body can use in the right way.
It's literally a science experiment, or an algorithm, a mathematical equation when it comes to leveling all these things out, and you can do it on such a cellular level, which is so cool. Let's talk about the risks if people consume too much protein, those who get very excited about going to the gym and getting pumped up. Tell us through a little bit about what's going on, and I guess the timing of protein intake. That's important too, right?
It is, and I think where we've really got to in the protein science is there was a new study that came out in December last year that actually threw a spanner in the works. So we used to think in the past the optimal amount of protein per meal was around 20 to 30 grams per meal, and that was because when they looked at studies, 20-30 grams of protein, so 100 grams of meat is roughly 25 grams of protein. But when they looked at the studies, they were only measuring that amino acid availability for muscle synthesis for about 6 hours after ingestion. So a study that came out last year looked at 0 grams of intake, 25 grams, and then 100 grams in a meal. And what they found is when they measured beyond 6 hours and they actually got to 12 hours, over 50% of those amino acids were actually available for muscle synthesis later in the day, as opposed to this limit or this threshold we thought that we had around 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. So we can continue the muscle synthesis beyond that 6 hours. So In terms of safe levels, well, you need to consider your goals. If you're taking in excess calories, any excess calories turn to body fat, even protein. So if you're looking to become leaner, then you need to control your calories first. And some of the other studies have shown that when you compare a traditional diet, say 200 grams of carbohydrate and 60 grams of protein on a weight loss diet, compared to 120 grams of protein and 120 grams of carbs, if the calories are the same, the body fat loss is completely different. The total weight loss might be similar. So the people on the 200 grams of carbohydrate might lose a similar amount of weight as the people on 120 grams, but it's the muscle mass. So the high carbohydrate diet people lost about 35% lean body mass or muscle mass, compared to the people on the 120 grams of protein, they only lost about 6% muscle mass or lean body mass, so their metabolism stayed up.
It is so interesting, and I can start to understand why you might need a dietitian to help people with this stuff, because I'm useless when it comes to numbers and whatnot, and I'll eat whatever I sort of feel like and what I need. I'm trying to get better at that, speaking to you, Kate. But just to summarise for us, what would your advice be to people out there?
Well, the number one trigger for actually muscle synthesis is getting enough protein in a meal, so that minimum 20 to 30 grams, and beyond that. Leucine is the key amino acid that you actually need for muscle synthesis. So it's actually looking at that particular amino acid in that meal and making sure a meal has 2 to 3 grams of leucine. So in a whey protein or a whey protein isolate, you could actually check that on the label. But when it comes to total energy intake, you need to be mindful that any excess calories will turn to body fat. It's less likely from protein. However, it could be counterintuitive. And the very last thing is, to build muscle, you need exercise. So if you don't give your body the stimulus, then what are you going to do with all that excess protein? You're going to store it as body fat. So do the work, then put in the protein, and then you'll synthesize more muscle.
Kate, as always, thanks for joining us on the program. Well said.